Welcome back to Going Walkabout. It's no surprise that there's an increase in interest from Americans to move abroad. In fact, in the first few weeks of November 2024, passport applications went up by 400%. I actually did a video around that time. It was called How to Leave the US in 5 Steps. And the video did well. It's had over 130,000 views. It had over 2,100 comments, and then it had over 6,800 likes. So all of that told me that people were very interested in knowing more about how to move abroad and relocate and what's involved in doing so. While I believe that the video was a good start to preparing to relocate, in this video, we'll go into a deeper dive on some of those things that I think are going to be important. If this is your first time watching the channel, welcome. I'm Susan Steele, and with my husband of 40 years, Carl Steele, we sold everything 3 years ago and decided to travel nonstop, and been doing that since. We've spent a third of our time in Europe and those areas, and then I would say 2/3 of the time we've been spending in Mexico. And you can go to my channel and have a look at all the different travel videos on those different places when time allows. So let's get started on these next 5 steps to being able to move abroad. Number 1, which is managing your money. So in the last video I mentioned it was really important to start managing your money in the way of paying off debt and consolidating any types of payments and things that you need to make. On top of that, I also said it's very important to go completely electronic with your banking and with any of your financial relationships, investments and things of that nature. So that is going to be something we're going to go into in a little bit more detail today. So the first step here is that you want to go into your online banking accounts and your finance management accounts, things like Fidelity and so forth, and you want to go paperless. That's going to be very, very helpful, not needing to get those paper statements mailed to you every month. Along with that, you're going to want to set up your ability to do all of your banking online. This is going to possibly require different things. It could be Face ID, it could be a second form of identification like your cell phone number so that you can do multi-factor authentication. You want to do all of this while you're in the United States. It's very, very difficult to do these types of things with banking type entities while you're out of the United States. So all of this needs to be set up while you're in the United States. You want to make sure that it's working smoothly, and then you want to set up all of your bill pay. So hopefully by now you've consolidated a lot of your bills so you don't have that many, and you're setting up online bill pay. At this juncture, you're in a much better position to be untethered when you decide to move abroad. In addition to this, it's important that you keep your same cell phone. Your cell phone is what credit card companies and banking entities know you as. They identify that. So when you're going to do something from outside of the United States, that number becomes very important. It's also important because that's how they will do multi-factor or even tri-factor authentication. What does that mean? It means that you're going to try to do something online. Maybe it's moving money from one account to another, or even from one entity bank to another bank. And in many cases, they're going to say, okay, we're going to send you a code to your cell phone number, and then we will want you to input that code while you're doing this transaction. That is another layer of authentication, and that's why you want to keep your same cell phone number. Until you are 100% going to move lock, stock, and barrel to another country, you're best to keep the cell phone numbers that are entwined with your different banking accounts and your different credit card accounts and things of that nature. The other thing that is really important, if you sell everything like we did, so you no longer have an address in the United States, is that you get a suite number. This is not a PO box. This is very different. A suite number is considered a valid address. You usually have to pay for this. We pay something like $300 a year to have a suite that we use, and it's out of a UPS store. There's a lot of importance to all of this. You will not be able to get Medicare without an address in the United States. So you need a valid suite number if you don't have a physical address. So please look into that. The other thing you may want to look into is getting that particular post box suite in a different state. You might want to consider getting it in a state that doesn't have state tax, like Las Vegas or Texas or Florida. We kept ours in California because that's where our Medicare is. And so those two things become very closely entwined. But you need a suite number because that's what your banks and your financial management companies will acknowledge as a valid address. They will not acknowledge a PO box as a valid address. The other thing that's nice about these UPS stores is, for instance, us being here in Mexico, we can call our UPS store and they can take whatever mail is there for us and they can actually send it to a UPS store here in Playa del Carmen. And we've done that a couple of times while we've been in different parts of the world, and that's worked out really nicely. The other thing that's really important, along with consolidating any debt and so forth, is to get rid of credit cards. If you've got credit cards for Target or Banana Republic or whatever stores, it's really important to start paying those off and getting rid of them completely. You won't be using them once you start traveling abroad. What we have done, and it's worked out really well for 3 years now, is we have one Visa credit card, we have one American Express credit card, and we have one MasterCard. And those three have worked out really well. So if one is not accepted, oftentimes American Express won't be accepted. We have the two other flavors to use. Now, on top of that, American Express does not charge foreign transaction fees. So if you can use that one all the time, that's gonna probably save you anywhere from $10 to $20 a month in transaction fees. So that's a good one to look into. Lastly, you're gonna need a debit card, and we do use the debit card a lot. We do like to use cash for tipping and for giving people money, especially small stores here in Mexico. They really appreciate it if you have cash, so we go to the ATM a lot. So you're gonna wanna join a bank that does not charge ATM fees. So again, all of these things are important to line up before you leave the United States. Okay, at number 2, we have really important apps that you'll want to download and get used to using before you leave the United States. The first one is called WhatsApp. And WhatsApp, I'll show you a picture of it over here, is an app that they use pretty much everywhere else in the world because cell phone usage is still very expensive in many countries, especially England and Europe. And so WhatsApp is free. It's secure, and it allows people to do instant messaging. You can also do FaceTime calls with it and regular phone calls with it. So what we have found is that we use WhatsApp predominantly when we're traveling. The other thing about WhatsApp that's really good is it has built-in translation. So for instance, when we were in Turkey and the people managing our apartment didn't speak English and we don't speak Turkish, the app automatically translates all the verbiage coming through. It's really, really helpful. We have found also that here in Mexico, they use this app extensively to make appointments, confirm appointments, and it's actually really nice. And that can be with your hairdresser, with your nail people, with your doctor. And in that case, the doctors use WhatsApp a lot and they use it to follow up and make sure you're okay. So WhatsApp is really important to download when you're in the US. The other app that I tend to use extensively is Google. And I know it sounds kind of crazy because we Google everything all the time. But when you're in a foreign country, what will happen is if you put in bakeries near me, it's gonna show you the bakeries near you, it's gonna show you a map, and it's also gonna show you their star rating. And that has been really important because Google has a whole star rating like Yelp does, and I have found that to be so helpful. It helped me find a hairdresser in Nice, France, when I don't speak French, and she was fantastic. And I was able to read the reviews and find out that she spoke some English, So that was really helpful. So what Google does is they do a 5-star rating, and they also do reviews. So you have the opportunity to really get some knowledge before you go to a particular establishment. I've used this to find doctors, and you get, again, you're gonna get all the reviews. And people in these other countries very actively use the reviewing system, and so I have found it to be very accurate. And I feel like I'm doing a Google commercial, but I'm not. Although I will say, one of the other things that we found is that when you travel, you're going to want to use Google Maps. Google actually goes down all the dirt streets and the little lanes and so forth in these different places. And because you're going to be probably walking a lot more, you're going to need something that's accurate and tells you where something is and where to turn and so forth. Apple does not do this. I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten really lost trying to use Apple. And then I realized that I had to start using Google Maps. They're much more sophisticated. They have not put us wrong once. So at number 3, we have healthcare and Social Security. So many people after the first video asking about that. And to start with, I did a whole video on Social Security and Medicare. You know, have a look at that, and it'll explain how you set it up, why you want it to be the way it is, and so forth. But essentially, the short version is make sure you receive your payments from Social Security on an electronic form, and that way you'll get paid wherever you are in the world. So don't worry about it, you're gonna get paid. Medicare is different. Medicare does not work outside of the United States, and ergo why it's important to have that suite address. If you want to keep your Medicare, they have to have an address in the United States to tie you to. So that's why you need that post-suite address for that. We right now have been going back once a year to get a Medicare checkup. Again, this is something that, you know, if you move permanently, you're most likely going to take advantage of the healthcare in the country you move to. We don't get insurance for travel because what we have found in other countries, it's very inexpensive for us to go to a doctor or a dentist. It's literally 1/5 of the cost that it would be in the United States, so we haven't gotten travel insurance. What I have understood is that it's a lot less expensive than what you would pay, let's say, in the United States for health insurance. Health insurance in the US for me was going to be $700. I think I could probably get travel insurance for about $150 a month. But by all means, look into that. What you're going to find when you travel is that there's many countries that are now doing medical tourism. A big one is Turkey. And you can go to Turkey and let's say a hip replacement that would be $45,000 in the United States, maybe it would be the same amount in pounds in England. You could go to Turkey and literally get that same procedure for a fraction of the cost. Medical tourism, you'll find out that there's several countries that are doing this. And so health-wise, when you travel, those are some things that are probably best to look into more deeply if you have things that occur that might require a more invasive surgery or thing. Okay, so we're at number 4, and in addition to choosing where you'll go, you want to consider things like time zones. And I believe that this is why Mexico and a lot of South American countries are very, very popular, because they're in the same time zones as Canada and the United States. And if you think about it, you know, if you have family and you want to be able to talk with family, it's really nice to be in a time zone that's similar. The other thing that we have found is when it comes to having to do anything with our bank or credit card companies, certainly if you're in Europe, you're 8 hours many times difference than the United States. So that starts presenting a problem. If you do have a lot of financial things that you've got to take care of, you'll definitely want to consider that. We don't. We have skinnied down our finances to a point where we don't worry about things like that. But certainly it's something to consider, and why I believe Mexico and a lot of places in South America have been very popular for people to relocate to. Along with this is a really important one, and that's look before you leap. A great example of this is that we had done tons of research and heard so many good things about Costa Rica. And so last year we were real excited to go there, and we were going to spend a month. because I'm gonna do what I tell you guys to do, and that's stay there for 30 days. And so we did, and we rented 3 different homes in Costa Rica. We stayed in the mountain area of Costa Rica, and we stayed in the coastline area of Costa Rica. We were there for the whole month. Gotta tell you, we didn't like it so much. So wow, were we glad that we didn't make any commitments there. I know people who've literally bought real estate in the first week they've been to a country. Don't do that. Do not do that. Make sure you do at least 30 days in a place, because that will really give you a good idea if that is a place that you're going to want to relocate to. Along with things to consider is the current political climate, and all over the world we've got massive change in leaders for different countries. And so it is really important that you look into that particular country and understand their leader's direction, what they're doing, because you may not be comfortable with it. We have found here in Mexico, they have a new president. She actually just came into office in November of last year, and her name is Claudia Sheinbaum. We really like her. She is doing a very good job at navigating a very difficult political environment right now in the world. She's very calm. She's very measured in her approach. She's very respectful of her people, and you can tell that she really loves the people here. She doesn't do things to try to get them upset, and that's good, because then day by day, people have a much more peaceful existence. So do look into that before you make any commitment to where you're going to be moving to. So here we are at number 5, and this is a really important one. Research as much as possible before you do anything. That's the beauty of YouTube, is that you can get on YouTube and you can really do a deep dive into a particular place. Doing that, I believe, helped us navigate making what could have been some really bad mistakes. Listening to other people's advice and what they had gone to. And you know, sometimes it's a 20-minute video and maybe I only get 2 things out of it, but those 2 things are real gems. So make sure you do a lot of research about where you're going before you go. And I do want to recommend some other folks that you may want to watch. And I thought I'd name 4 channels that I think could be helpful for you. The first one that I would look at, and again, this is if you're thinking of moving to France, it's a couple called Baguette Bound. And they're a couple that moved because the gentleman in the relationship had some medical issues that were going to be cost prohibitive in the United States, and so they wanted to move to a country where medical costs were not as high. And they have a daughter, and they wanted her to grow up with a different, more cosmopolitan viewpoint and so forth. But they're very good. Another couple that I think are really good is Amelia and JP Abroad. And again, they moved from Colorado initially to, I believe, Ecuador because of JP's medical issues and that it was going to be cost prohibitive in the United States. You're kind of hearing a theme here, right? These folks have moved all over, and they actually can also give you some tools to moving abroad, questionnaires, forms to fill out, things of that nature. Again, I have found them to be very good. Their information is solid, it's not biased, it's very unbiased information, and I think that's important. The other one is Mexico Relocation Guide, and it's not as polished, but the Mexico Relocation Guide is kind of neat because if you have a particular place you want to move to in Mexico, they tend to interview people who are from either Canada or the United States, or maybe France, and have moved to Mexico and what they went through in that process. They also will tell you updates on different visa requirements and so forth. And lastly, I had a lot of people that contact me and were solo travelers. And and I know that's a whole different ballgame when you're a solo traveler. So what a good person for you to look at is a lady named Traveling with Kristen. And she actually wrote a book called Digital Nomad for Dummies. And she has literally been traveling, my gosh, for years. And she is obviously a lady and she travels by herself. So I think she's a great resource if you're a solo traveler. She's also got a program where she helps people relocate to other countries. And so she's very thorough in her research. I also have found her to be very unbiased in the way that she'll explain a place that she's visited. And sometimes you need that. A lot of times the travel channels make a place sound really wonderful when it's actually not that wonderful. And so it's important to kind of lean on some of these other YouTubers that can give you a more 360-degree realistic view of a particular area. So that's it. My hope is that this video with its 5 steps, coupled with the other video and those 5 steps, will really help you get a leg up on the steps to go through in moving abroad. I want to thank all the folks that commented on the last video. Like I said, we had 2,100 comments. That's huge. People read those. There was a lot of learnings to be had from that. So please comment again and know that people are going to be reading them and trying to gain information from that. I want to thank you for watching today. And if you've enjoyed the video, a like or a thumbs up goes a long way in helping the channel, or better yet, subscribe. Thank you again for watching today. We have a new video every week. Take care. Cheers for now.